Hey everybody, Kiraj here with the Doctor in Yellow channel. Welcome back and thank you so much for being here. Always good to have you here and making some time for me. And today I wanted to speak about something that is a little bit more fun because if you look at some of my content, you can probably tell that I'm comfortable in the shadow, exploring psychology as it relates to tarot, some of the deeper parts of my tarot practice. I just love to share those things, and it brings me a lot of joy to explore how diving into the depths of a tarot practice can lead to healing and growth. But every once in a while, you just want to do something a little bit more fun, and that's why I'm here. And this video is actually inspired by a video that Lisa Papez did, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. It's a brilliant video and very comprehensive deep dive into tarot cardstock because Lisa Papez is a deck creator herself, and I just loved that video. I've thought about it on and off ever since I watched it, and I think it is amazing. Definitely check it out. I'm going to put it in the description of this video. But in that video, she explores so many different types of cardstock, how they feel, the different cores that cardstock can have, and how that all contributes to a tarot practice, and just the tactile experience of using tarot cards. And what that inspired me to do is think about if I were a kid in a candy store, as it were, when it came to the things that I can select that I want in my tarot deck, here are all the things that I would choose. And I started thinking deeply about that, thus the tag, Tarot Deck Candy Store. Because if you had the ability to pick and choose every detail that you wanted in your ideal tarot deck, specifically as it relates to handling and utility and the tactile experience, and a bit of a visual element as well, and we'll get into that in a bit, what would you choose? And I thought on and off about that and decided that there were 4 key dimensions that were important to me in terms of handling for a tarot deck. So the first one is size and shape. So that's one category. The second one is cardstock. Third is gilding or any edge work on the deck. And then the fourth is borders. So I'm going to be talking about each of those 4 things. And the goal of this tag is to really build a body of knowledge and feedback for deck creators. So creators who have already made a deck and are looking to make another, or perhaps creators who want to make a deck and are interested in how the community views certain aspects of deck handling and want to get feedback about what the community generally likes. So the purpose of this tag is to have everybody share what their opinion is on these 4 things in order to give deck creators a little bit more information to work with about what the community likes in their tarot deck. How they like it to feel with cardstock, are they into borders or not, what are their thoughts about gilding, and all of that information can help tremendously in getting creators to understand what their audience is looking for. So that's the purpose of this tag. I really hope that others respond with their preferences. These are just mine, and this is in no way representative of the entire community. These are just my preferences that I want to lend to this conversation. So I hope others can share either by doing a tag themselves or by commenting. So I think that would be great. So let's dive right in. And what I'm going to be doing is using the Yellow House Tarot by Heidi Dawn Nickerson as an example of a standard tarot size. So this deck is absolutely beautiful. And as I mentioned, this will be what I'm using as a comparison for a standard deck size when looking at a couple of the categories. This is an absolutely wonderful deck that makes use of watercolor, and I think Heidi did such an amazing job with this deck. I love it to pieces. It's very soft color palette, very gentle images, and an abundance of yellow, which I never have any complaints about. Never ever will have any complaints about that. But I love this deck. I won't do a whole walkthrough, but just wanted to show you a few cards. But again, this is going to be my comparison for standard deck. And again, here are the backs, if you're interested in checking that out. Also, all of the decks that I mention in this video, I'm going to link in the description. So if you're interested in checking any of them out, you'll be able to find the links there to the creator's website. If I think one of the decks is out of print, I'll be sure to note that, because I'm not sure which ones are, but if there's a potential it is, I'll be sure to include that or mention that as I bring the deck up. So the first category that I wanted to talk about is size and shape, and for me this is going to be the easiest one to talk about and the quickest, because I like a deck that is more or less a standard tarot size. So I'm not someone who likes a deck to be too small. So mini decks I generally am not a fan of, or a deck to be too big. So anything that deviates considerably from a standard tarot size is going to be one that I'm not too much of a fan of. That also applies to decks that are circular. I know Mother Peace is an example of that, which is a beloved deck. I think the artwork is fantastic. But to me, I'm not a fan of the irregular card shape. There are some decks that are also hexagonal or octagonal, and those are not for me. Or other shapes even beyond that. So for me, I like for it to be a standard tarot size and a standard tarot shape. Again, more or less. I'd say the smallest I would go, and this is the Tabula Mundi, the Manus Perfectus edition by M.M. Milline. And this is just slightly larger than a standard playing card. And this is probably as small as I would go in terms of a deck that I would use on a regular basis. And here is how that compares to a standard tarot size. You can see that it is quite a bit shorter and just a hair thinner. But that is like the absolute smallest that I would go, without it feeling like it's just a straight up mini deck. But yes, much larger than a standard tarot size, and I'll probably never use it. Some examples of that would be the Druidcraft, which has artwork that I absolutely love because Celtic imagery and culture are integral to my spiritual practice. And I want to love that deck so much. And again, this is the Tabula Mundi. But it's too much. It's too big. And I am someone who has larger hands, so I can handle the deck, but it's just a matter of how comfortable is it to use on a regular basis. So anything that is a standard tarot shape and size, more or less, I'm going to gravitate to. If it's very much larger than that, or smaller than the Tabula Mundi, then I probably will not use it. And I've considered that and tried to understand why that is exactly. And I don't know that I have a really good answer for it. I mean, it's just preferences. Everybody has their preferences. I just feel most comfortable with a standard size. So that's how I would answer the size and shape dimension of utility for a deck. Now, the second category is cardstock. So, what do you generally prefer in your cardstock? Now, the Yellow House Tarot is an example of a linen cardstock. You may not be able to see it on camera, but has a very nice soft linen feel. And in the past, I probably would have said linen cardstock is my favorite. And I'm not even a riffle shuffler who would benefit more from a more flexible and pliable linen cardstock. I'm an overhand shuffler. But even so, I love a linen cardstock and still do. But that changed when I experienced 330 GSM Black Core cardstock. And to get a little bit more information about that, again, check out Lisa's video, which I'm going to have linked. But she gets into that, and it is a beautiful cardstock. I have two decks that have this cardstock, but one is the Baphomet Tarot. This is by Travis McHenry, and this is a Kickstarter that I want to say was maybe 2 years ago. And this might potentially be out of print. However, there is another version of this deck that is more monochromatic. It has a red theme. It's called the Blood of Baphomet Tarot. You can see it a little bit better from this angle. So that might still be in print, but I think this full color version might be out of print. So just a heads up about that. Also, if you're wondering, like, dude, you're all about yellow and positivity, like what's up with the satanic deck? If you're curious about that, check out a video I did like 3 weeks ago about honoring our past selves, and that you will have your answer there. It'll make sense. But this is again the Baphomet Tarot by Travis McHenry. I keep it in this box, and this cardstock is just phenomenal. So again, this is 330 GSM Black Core cardstock. It is thin but feels very sturdy at the same time. Travis used a very silky finish on it as well. It just feels absolutely amazing in the hands. And the deck itself, because of how thin the cards are, the deck itself ends up not being very thick. And I love the thickness of this deck. The cards are just such a delight to hold. And if you are a riffle shuffler, this type of cardstock, I think, would be probably one of your favorites if you like just the flexibility and pliability of a thinner cardstock. But in my opinion, if every deck could have this cardstock, oh my goodness, like I would have 1,000 decks. I just absolutely love it, specifically with this silky finish on it. It is just so nice to hold. Let me do a quick little springiness so you can see it. Very springy, returns its shape very easily. It's amazing. The only other deck that I have that has this cardstock is the Craft Felt Tarot by Gianna Lucci. That one is a gloss though, so the finish is a little bit different, but still 330 GSM Black Core. It's the perfect thickness. Love the Black Core flexibility, and it feels super high quality as you hold it, and feels substantial without feeling like the deck is too thick to manipulate. So this would be my favorite cardstock, with linen cardstock being a very close second to that. So overall, though, I don't have many non-examples of that, because if I'm not a fan of a deck's cardstock, I am very quick to part ways with it. Very, very quick. Because to me, a deck needs to be A deck is a tool. It needs to be able to be used, and for that reason, I need to feel comfortable using it. And if I just don't like the way it feels in my hands, I will exit it from my collection pretty quickly and rehome it. Because I'll be too distracted by the tactile experience to be able to focus on actually getting the insights that I want. So, at the risk of sounding like a cardstock snob, like it really is critical to my to my tarot practice that the tactile experience be good, and that one is just excellent. There is another cardstock that I absolutely love, and the deck that I want to use as an example of that is the Viola Lux Umbra by Layla and Olive, which is the company, and the creator behind the company is Nicole Rallis. Love this deck. And I got this deck because I love plants and I wanted a botanical deck. And this one was just perfect for me. This deck has a rose petal finish. However, and here are the backs. Let me show that to you. See in there. It's kind of like a charcoal with some texture on it. The flowers around the edges. I just love this deck so much. And it is a rose petal finish, but it's like a more mild or gentler rose petal that doesn't clump together too much. So I know a lot of people aren't big fans of rose petal because it's difficult for them to shuffle if the cards stick together. This is one that has that nice, smooth rose petal feel. It's like a silky finish without the deck sticking together or without the cards clumping together too much. And this is one of my all-time favorites. It is a very simple, kind of minimalistic type of deck. But man, the tactile experience of using this is just out of this world for me. I love it. Sturdy, high quality, and for me, perfect in the sense that it provides that botanical feel. I love flowers, as I mentioned, love plants, and being able to use a deck like this and get those intuitive hits with this more minimalistic imagery, but also very beautiful imagery, is just something that I love. Can't recommend this deck enough, but this would be a cardstock that I love as well. Like a rose petal, but not rose petal to the point where everything clumps. It's a smooth, nice shuffle and finish, which I always appreciate in a deck. So, highly recommend that as well. And that, again, is the Viola Lux Umbra. Now, the next category is going to be gilding. And I know that there are a lot of different opinions on this. Like, there are some people who like gilding, some who don't, some who like specific types of gilding. And from the perspective of a deck creator, I think that can sometimes be confusing if you're trying to figure out like what the community likes. And the reality is that everybody's opinions are different, but I want to share mine on gilding. Now, if something is going to be done to the edges at all, because it's not a requirement, but if something is going to be done to the edges, I prefer it to be what I call a painted edge. And I'm going to use the Tarot of Hearts as my example for this. I showed this deck in my last video, and I love this deck so much. But this is an example of a deck that has that like painted type edge that I'm referring to. I'll show you what I mean. So you can see that the edges of this deck are a matte, a yellowish color. So this is not shiny or sparkly at all. It's not metallic gilding. It's just a painted matte edge. The same that you would get if you took a marker or something similar and just edged the deck that way. That is my preferred gilding or edging on a deck because it adds a little visual appeal, especially if it complements the artwork on the deck, without it hurting or feeling rough in the hands, which can sometimes be the case with traditional metallic gilding. So I love just a simple, solid color matte edge. The Baphomet Tarot that I showed you just a couple minutes ago also has that black matte edging that I like as well. So a non-shiny, matte, solid color painted edge is my preference for a deck. However, a very close second to that, and I have so many decks at my side here, so bear with me. um, Very close second is what I showed you with the Viola Lux Umbra, and I'm gonna show a couple more examples of this. But this is a matte gilding, so it's not a painted edge like I showed before. These edges really are sparkly and gilded, but it's a sturdier, like matte or brushed gilding on the sides that holds up a little bit better to shuffling and long-term use while still being just as beautiful. On this particular deck, that gilding is almost kind of like a rose gold in a way, but it's just a minimally sparkly, not super shiny, but still has a little bit of bling to it, while feeling sturdy and that it can hold up to long-term use. Another deck that I have that is an example of that is my Splendor Solace Tarot. Another one of my faves. Here are the backs of the cards on that one. I love that sun. And you can see it has that gilded edge. It's like a matte brushed gilding. That's not the super shiny metallic, which I'll show you in a second. And it feels wonderful in the hand. So it feels like it can hold up well to repeated use while also not being too much on the hands as you're shuffling. Because I wouldn't say that I'm an aggressive shuffler, but you know, I can be pretty speedy when I'm shuffling. And if an edge is too hard, then it can end up hurting the palm of my hand a bit. And this type of gilding makes sure that that is not the case when I'm using the deck. So love the Splendor Solace for that reason as well. Now, if a creator chooses to use traditional gilding on their deck, so we all are familiar with like the gold gilding that you see on a lot of decks that's like a shiny metallic gold. That tends to be not my favorite, only because it can sometimes hurt given the way that I shuffle. And what I've noticed sometimes is there is a mismatch between that gilding and the cardstock in a way that makes the cardstock warp in a really weird way. So I've noticed that if a deck is gilded with that traditional metallic gilding, and the gilding is like too heavy for the weight of the card can warp in a way that you can't really undo. And it sometimes produces my least favorite type of warping in a card. So if a deck warps like this or like this, I can handle that. Like, that's not a problem for me. But if it warps along the corners like that, where you have the corner stick up on a diagonal, that drives me insane. That drives me crazy whenever that happens. And I've noticed that tends to be more common if there is the traditional metallic gilding that is on a cardstock that's not robust enough to handle it. So that combined with the roughness that I can sometimes feel on my hands from it makes it not my favorite type of gilding. However, if a creator is going to use that type of gilding, I think it can be enhanced if the colors match or complement the actual cards. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. The first one is my Red Hand Tarot by Pixel Occults. And this deck is a beautiful, very vibrant red. These are the backs of the cards. I'm going to try to move it so that the ring light doesn't completely block it out. You can see the redness of the cards, but then this metallic red gilding really complements it. Like, it's just stunning on this deck. It's like a ruby red. So while metallic edging is not always my fave, this is an example of one that I think works well because the color complements the color scheme of the deck very, very nicely. So you can see that more monochromatic red color scheme. And it's a lightweight feel to it. So this metallic edging is not like the super thick, rough, scratchy edging that can sometimes hurt your hands a little bit. It still feels softer. So this is a good example of that. Just the color like looking amazing with the deck. Another example of that, this one is a blue one. This is the Starborn Arcana Tarot. And this is by Nito, which is a group of artists. And in this deck, which is space themed, it's very, very sci-fi themed, you have these blue backs, which I think are beautiful as well. A lot of the artwork on the cards is very blue. So blue is a very common color choice in this deck, even though each of the suits have their own color variations. But because of that use of blue, the edges are just gorgeous in that blue color. Very, very nice, and complement the backs well, complement the art well. I think this looks so nice. So again, if a standard metallic gilding is your choice as a deck creator, I think having one that visually complements the deck goes a long way. And I think making sure that it works well with the cardstock so that the card doesn't warp is another consideration. And then also making sure that it's not so thick that it can feel rough to use. And kind of have like a thinner coating, I guess you could say, so that it still feels soft in the hand and lends itself to a nice tactile experience. So those are my thoughts on gilding. The fourth and final dimension that I wanted to consider is borders. So I am somewhat indifferent about borders. I like a borderless card. I like a border card. But I would say there is kind of a nuance a little bit. With borderless cards, I pretty much never have an issue with that. Like, it's very rare that I see a borderless card and I'm like, oh, I wish it had borders. But I like a border as well. However, I generally like for the border to complement the art a bit. And I will show you a couple of examples of that. One of the best examples of this, in my opinion, is the Ethereal Visions Tarot by Matt Hughes. This is the Luna edition. Just so beautiful with that holographic cover. And to me, this is an example of a deck that does a great job with including borders that add to the art. Let me show you these. So just a few of the cards. You can see that holographic edging. So you can see the borders on the cards are different. So it has borders insofar as the borders envelop the art, but it's playing alongside the art as well. It's a part of the piece. It changes from card to card, and I think accentuates the art very, very well. And that's not even considering the holographic edging or cold stamping on it. It's really just a matter of getting creative with the borders as an art piece. I just think it does so much to enhance the deck because it doesn't feel like something that is separate from the art itself. It is the art along with the actual image. These are just great examples. So you can see like a firm border around the art, but it just plays right alongside the image in just a perfect way, in my opinion. Just so, so nice. Almost to the point where you don't even recognize that it has borders. That's how great of a job it does. So something like that, I think, is just an exceptional example of how borders can be used in a way that complements the art. However, there's another one that I want to show, and that is the Cosmic Wisdom Tarot by Ethany. Ethany is a deck creator as well who has created a wonderful deck in this and has many other wonderful decks too. So I highly encourage you to check her out. And this is one of her best, in my opinion, because she has a few decks that she's worked on. And here are the backs, these cards. Just lovely cosmic theme. So nice. But you can see, oh, and also these, this gilding is a holographic gilding. So another example of a gilding that I think complements the art style really well, the back of the cards and then also the art. But in this deck, it has borders, as you can see, but it's a very elegant border that complements the art super, super well. So it doesn't feel like it's clashing at all. It's just a nice, elegant pattern around the edges. So even though it doesn't make itself a piece of the art in the way that the Ethereal Visions deck does, it still complements the art and frames it and emphasizes it in such a nice way. Just that lovely, let's see if I can get it a little bit closer. Ornate design around the edges. So this is another example of one where I feel the borders are great and would highly recommend it for a deck creator. So basically, I like for the borders to complement the artwork or otherwise be interacting with the artwork in some way rather than just being there. They enhance the piece that's already there. And that's kind of the long and short of how I look at borders in decks. But those are the 4 dimensions that I wanted to speak about. Let me know your thoughts with this tag if you decide to create a video and share your preferences. What is in your tarot deck candy store? If you could just choose whatever you want from these 4 dimensions, what would you choose? Let me know in a response or in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. As always, thank you for being here, and we'll talk soon.